Oh, welcome to Majesty in the Moment. I am Majesty AliNICOLE WOW, and I am excited to be with you during this time, coming forth to do an impromptu segment because this is what these particular segments are all about. I don't have any planned agenda. It's just when I feel the guidance to come forth, I just press the record, and then we'll see what emerges, what rises to the top that is going to be of the most value for me to serve you during this time. Those who are not familiar with my branding, I'm a multi-mission entrepreneur, and I'm cross-trained in over 200 areas, have over 300 works on Amazon, and actually over 1,000 online platforms that serve different niche markets. And so during these segments, I come forth and leverage whatever functionality of my cross-functional authority wants to come forth to be able to serve. So sometimes that looks like me providing some type of literal training or some type of activation, some type of motivational speaking, or just an organic kind of dialogue. Well, it's really a monologue, but it's more conversational to you. So we just see, again, no planned agenda. I'm just prepared to step into whatever role that I need to during this time. So I am being present with this experience here. See how I can best serve you, during this time. So something that's coming up just initially, it doesn't mean that this is going to be what the entire segment is about, but it's about shifting seasons of your life and basically knowing when a certain season is over and when it's time to move on. There are always indications of the emergence of a season. So when you think about when winter starts shifting into spring, right? There's an indication of some occurrences happening that spring is on the way. So when you look at your life, there's always something that is queuing up in a sense to let you know it's time to shift the season. And you don't want to operate out of season, okay? You always need to be ready, as the Bible says, be prepared in season and out of season, which indicates that there are some out seasons for certain things. Just like with, I'll just take gardening, for instance, or when you hear about certain fruits, that fruit's not in season. You can get it all year round for sure, but typically it's not going to be at its best and fullest potential if it's out of season, unless you're having it imported from somewhere where they're consistent with that, and that's going to cost you. But that's a whole nother subject. Just an analogy, metaphorically speaking here. So shifting seasons and knowing when it's time, to shift seasons. So I'm going to go here for a moment because some of you have been in a season where you've been in scarcity and the brokenness, the lack illusion, so to speak. But the season is here that it's time for you to be more abundant, and not just abundant in terms of just general, actually financial abundance. But because maybe you've been in that broke state for a long time, you're not really anticipating much emerging, but this is the time where you actually need to shift into what would seem like a new reality of yourself and already be embodying that way of being. So you need to be preparing for that. All right. So I'm telling you that that's what's springing up for sure. That's what's queuing up for a great majority of you who've been in that, in that state. Now, for some of you, maybe you have been in the abundant state, but you can never be overly abundant, right? So there's more ready to come in, but maybe you're going to have to apply a different level of stewardship with that abundance because you're not necessarily accustomed to that amount of abundance and that type of experience. So this is the time where you can start preparing yourself for this next level. And what does this look like? Are you contributing to other people? How are you sharing the overflow, or what are you doing? Are you investing? Are you pouring more into certain areas in your life? Are you now going to take a vacation or do something and invest in a hobby or a passion or so? So these are things that you really need to be exploring, during these times, all right? Because the season is shifting. So those of you maybe have had health challenges or so, this is the season you're shifting into more vitality, being more vibrant, your well-being coming forth in a more optimal way. So you have to be preparing for this, all right? Now I'm going to have to go here. Some of you may be also shifting seasons into a pruning season where things are being pulled back. You're being cut back because there's more expansion that needs to happen, but that expansion can't happen without the pruning. And the Bible talks, about the vine being pruned, and it is that you get cut back so that more fruit can bear. So you have to be willing to allow yourself to be pruned, all right? And pruning doesn't always mean that there's going to be something disruptive happening, but it just is, that's the time. It's the time. Rose bushes get pruned so that they could do what? Grow back more massively, in a sense. So you have to be prepared for whatever season is shifting, but I certainly sense that there's the shifting of seasons, taking place. So one way to know and to clarify what season you're in is to get present, for sure, and just ask yourself, what is this season of life presenting for me, or what's emerging? What's next for me in this season, all right? Or what's this season about? So you want to get curious about it, right? It's nothing to overthink. You just want to be present with the experience, but also paying attention to your life. Life is always speaking. Just as the Bible says, wisdom is always crying out in the street, raising her voice in the marketplace. And most people are just oblivious to that. And typically people are oblivious to their lives. I talk about this a lot, and some of you, if you've heard other segments, I talk about how we can easily get distracted from things that are going great in life. Then also sometimes the contrast can distract too, not understanding that it's an extraction experience, or it distracts you when it's designed to extract the best from you, right? So just sitting with what season of life you're in during this time, what season is shifting. We know that if something's shifting, that means that it's changing up. It's something that has not been, is coming into fruition, all right? Or you're shifting to another level of it. This is an individual thing. So you're just going to have to, again, be present, leverage the power of the present moment so that you can know what that's like for you, what is queuing up. And then you can start to prepare accordingly. All right. So let me just be present and see if there's any other emerging topic or so that maybe wants to come forth, and or whatever role I need to, to step into. I do feel like some type of empowerment is going to come forth, but we'll see. We'll see. I really am feeling like being a champion to you, but whatever way that's going to come forth, again, remember, I'm in the present moment, so I'm just ready to step into whatever role that's sort of queuing up. All right. So I'm excited about this because going back really quick to the shifting of season, there's so many possibilities, and that's the place that you want to play in is whoa, here we go, the playground of possibilities. So here's where I'm going to champion you. All right, this is where the empowerment is coming forth. So being able to step into the playground of possibilities and imagining yourself being like a child again, all right? But not necessarily recalling your childhood or anything from that experience, but being in the present moment with a childlike essence of who you are, all right? Now, what could potentially emerge are some childhood dreams, some that maybe didn't get fulfilled, or some that did, but they didn't expand the way that you thought, and maybe you feel like that's not done, all right? So when you're in this playground, that means it's time to start playing around. It's time to start exploring. It's time to be on an adventure. And I can recall even from my childhood, in a sense, when going to the playground, we would set up forts and we'd do all kinds of things. We would transform the playground into something, completely different. And if you've ever seen the cartoon, The Backyardigans, that used to come on Nickelodeon, maybe it still does. All my children are older, so they don't really watch that stuff. I've got a 27-year-old and a almost 16-year-old, so they're into other things. But I do recall watching that show when they were younger, and how the Backyardigans would go, and next thing you know, they go in the backyard and it's transformed into whatever their imaginations could come up with. So this is the season too where you're in the playground of possibilities. What's possible, and what can you start to explore? What can you be curious about? And if there is something that you need to revisit from your childhood, what is the present speaking to you? All right. So just be with that for a moment. I'm going to invite everyone to take a deep breath, please. All right. So just be in that playground. What's presenting itself? What adventure is calling you during this time? And what do you feel most empowered to do? Are you reawakening something? Is there a childhood dream that still seems unfulfilled, so to speak, or just ready for the next level of it? What possibilities are you being called to play with during this time? What just threw a dodgeball at you as an invitation to get in the game? Yeah. Who tagged you? You're it now. And now you have to go and chase it. What, metaphorically, what is calling you in that way? What's inviting you to play? Are the swings attractive to you? Are the jungle gyms attractive to you? What's calling you? Is there a sandbox that's calling you? These are metaphors, of course. But what is it in your life that's inviting you to reconsider, to try something? Try to play a game you've never played before. What's a new adventure? Something you've never embarked on. And if you're being called to the sandbox, are you adding water to it, making mud pies? Are you making sand castles? Or are you picking some sand up and throwing it on somebody and inviting them in? What are the possibilities? Is that sandbox inviting you to be creative, for your artistry to come forth? So just think about that. Just be in that playground space, all right? Or what are you transforming the playground into? Maybe it's the time for you to look at something that's there and kind of recreate that site from scratch, right? See beyond what's there and create it to be something unique. What's possible? What's possible? Take a deep breath, please. All right. So just be with that. And of course, you can go back and listen to this several times, all right? So something else that is coming up in the moment, and we'll see what role I shift into for this, but something around no substitutions and not settling. And I've done talks about this in previous segments, and also too, I do a whole lot. So sure, on YouTube, I've got podcast features. I've talked about something of this nature, have articles or so, around this. But no substitution. Sometimes we feel we have to substitute for something that we don't have, or we feel isn't available to us. But in this season, there is no replacement. There's no substitution for what is really wanting to come forth, what's wanting to be experienced, because life is always desiring to be experienced through us, right? So we just have to be present with what is the way and what is the truth, and the life will come through. It's the Christ equation. I am the way, the truth, and the life. You know the way, that truth will be illuminated, and the life can be lived from that vantage point, okay? So no substitution, because if you substitute, you're going to settle. Now, I don't know what this is for each of you. It's an individual thing, but that certainly is what's coming up. Not substituting, no substitution. There's no replacement. And if you've ever done ordering, which we do grocery delivery, and we pick out our items, and then they have the replacement substitution if that particular item is not available. And then there's the option that says, don't replace. No replacement, meaning we don't want any. If we can't have that, then we don't want whatever else you have. So you have to figure out what that is for you. And you have to use discernment too, because there are going to be areas in your experience, areas in your life where you do need to not be, oh, it's all or nothing, right? So you do have to use discernment in terms of what that is. What areas are where there are no substitutions, and then there are areas where, well, yeah, I can actually substitute for that. So you have to be, again, mindful and use discernment. But I'm willing to bet the farm, so to speak, that the area that you are called not to substitute is something very significant in terms of what's emerging for the greater plan, meaning there's no substitution. We're not doing this part another way. This is going to be, it may be multiple ways that unfolds, but we aren't settling. You're not going to settle. You're either going to wait it out a little bit longer, but you are not going to settle. You're not going to substitute. There's no middleman here. You're jumping from where you are into the next emergence or so, whatever it is. There can be no substitution for this. Again, it's individual. So you'll have to be present to know what that is. All right. So I'm going to wrap up this impromptu segment. We've covered 3 things actually. So it's pretty good for a particular impromptu segment. Sometimes I can get in the zone of something, and even on one topic, and I can go on and on for quite some time. So it's pretty good to have 3 different types of focuses come up, and you can play around with that and explore more. And I encourage you to go back and listen to this several times. One of the things that I find is that when you engage a process a certain way, and then you come back and do it at least 3 times, it produces a different experience each time. You learn something more, or something you didn't grasp or hear the first time or so, the second or third time, it's more illuminate, it's crystal clear, to you. So you definitely want to take the opportunity to do that. Thank you so much for being with me during this time. And I hope to serve you again soon. Again, I just come forth with these as I feel guided to do so, and just being present in the space always and seeing what emerges. All right, I am, as always, wishing you the absolute best. Make sure you get present with your life. Take care and stay blessed.